It's my honor to introduce you all today to Alexandra Cervantes. It's very good to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
I understand that you have a really bad case with CPS that's been pretty difficult, and I was wondering if you could talk to us about that today.
Oh yes, it'd be an honor.
And we appreciate you coming in.
Oh yeah, thank you.
How did you first enter the system?
I had first entered the system in December 2012. My child was abused and had bruising on his back, so I took him to the emergency room just to make sure that that was what it is, was just contusion, which is bruising, and that's what it was. So when I took him to the emergency room contacted CPS, and that's how I became involved.
What was your caseworker's concerns at that time in regards to your child?
The safety concerns were about staying away from the father, since my baby's timeline was most of the day he was with the father for about 10 hours. So their concern was just staying away from my baby's father.
And at that time, how did CPS treat your family?
At that time, I had felt that they were being very biased towards my family. They denied my child being placed with my parents. They were denying my uncles and aunts. I don't think we were being treated fairly at all.
Okay. It's my understanding that that your son did end up being placed with a family member. How did that take place?
That took place about 2 months after he was already with the non-relative placement. I was pushing and pushing for them to place my babies with my aunt and uncle. And what I had to do was bring up the name ombudsman, which they are an advocate for people going through the system. And so once I brought up the ombudsman, they immediately the next day placed my baby with my aunt and uncle, because the family was going out of the state and I didn't approve, and they were trying to court order to have that be okay with the judge. And it got accepted. The judge accepted that, and I wasn't pleased, so I told them ombudsman. I went there, I don't know how many times I showed up at the DHS place that day, and then finally they said, okay, we'll do this, this, and that, and then they got him in there the next day and did the home study after they already placed him there. So I think they knew that what they were doing wasn't appropriate. They didn't want to get investigated.
So you don't believe that they were doing what was best for your son at that time?
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what the safety plan was for regaining custody of your son, and how often did you have visits with him?
Yes. At first, the safety plan was that since my baby was still with me, that couldn't be around the father. No one else but me could be alone with my child. That if anything were to happen to my child, as in he fell or got hurt, I had to contact CPS immediately. But then my visits at first started to be just 3 hours a week. So I got to see them twice, or I got to see my first child twice a week for only an hour and a half.
And did you successfully reach that goal and regain custody of your minor son?
I did. I was pregnant at the time when my first child was taken from me. So my goal was to have Malakhi back under my care before I gave birth to my second child. I had completed that goal successfully. I did everything they asked of me: parenting classes, domestic violence counseling. I participated in drug screens once a week. I also voluntarily did Al-Anon classes. I did individual counseling with another family referred service that was all from DHS. I got a lot of compliments from the judge when I was first in the system, but when I got the my child taken from me the second time, it was a complete different story.
Now, I have a question for you. Did you have previous drug convictions? Is that why the court was trying to require you, to...
No, they based my person on what the father was. They thought of me as, how am I attracted to or want to be having a family with somebody of such a criminal background, that there must be something wrong with me too.
Okay.
So I feel like that's why they had me under drug screens.
Okay, so then you had 2 children, and I understand that things were going good for you.
Oh, yes.
And what happened after that?
Well, on September 5th of last year, I had gone to this hotel which the father of my child was staying at, and my children had been removed because he had been involved with a lot of criminal activity. I was not aware of what he was involved in. I did know that he had suspended licenses and whatnot, and that's maybe why he had a warrant, and maybe the cops went over there. But nothing's expected that my children are going to be taken from me because I was driving in a public place.
Okay. So you don't feel there was any reason for them to remove your children?
Oh, no. My youngest was 8 days old when he was taken from me. My oldest was 1.5. I mean, I was in the parking lot for 3 hours until they got all the paperwork that I requested, because they weren't going to show me any removal paperwork. I had to ask them. So about 1.5 hours later, they showed back up at the scene, and my babies were all just waiting in the car just for my children to be taken from me. And I don't know what warranted it, but it just seemed like there's nothing I could do. I had no say. Nothing.
That had to be really hard on you.
Oh, yeah, and my 1-year-old was screaming. He was leaving with strangers.
Was there any type of paperwork, or did you have any understanding on why they were removing the children at that point?
Their reasoning was that I was going to be letting my children be involved with all this criminal activity. Like I said, that I had to request from the CPS investigator a removal paperwork because they weren't going to show me anything. And so she had to go get that signed. But even I've heard that, I mean, it's the law that a judge has to go over why your child is being removed from you. And I don't feel like he really did that. I don't know if anybody's heard of rubber stamping, that the judge just got the removal papers stamped, and that's why my children were removed, which I feel like when removing a child, a newborn, from a mother, there should be more standards, definitely. Not just some paper, not just some strangers coming in your life and removing your children from you.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Again, the baby that was removed was 8 days old, and that's got to be one of the worst things you can go through.
I was breastfeeding, everything.
Were you represented by an attorney in the court case?
I was represented by an attorney, although it was a court-appointed attorney.
And it's my understanding that there was also a caseworker that was involved with your family?
Yes, there was.
And did the court then set up new requirements for you to regain custody of your children?
Yes, I pretty much repeated what I did the first time. And in court, they kept saying that I was never going to benefit, and for the likelihood of my children's well-being, considering their age, it was more appropriate to put them up for adoption than to reunify my family.
So you didn't have a lot of options in regards to getting your children back.
Nope, I feel like what happened is that they went through procedure steps and steps to make sure that they covered, you know, everything they had to do in order to successfully terminate my rights.
Now, did you complete your second service plan that CPS
Oh
had
yes,
set
I
up for you?
completed it, and I still was in the system for about 2.5 more months, requesting for more counseling, requesting for more services, and nobody responded to me. I was just left and idle until my parental rights were just completely removed.
Now, were you able to have visitation with your children up until the time they removed them?
Yes, I was able to see them twice a week.
What are you doing at this point to get your children back under your care?
Right now, I am appealing my termination. I am going to the Court of Appeals, and I'm working with my attorney on figuring out what we are going to claim. And we have been real successful on finding out what we can get this court to reverse my termination and back to the lower court. So I'm feeling really good about it, and I'm also trying to reach out to the media and the public and teaching and educating people about how broken the system is.
And that's what we're doing today. And one of the things I wanted to ask you is that with this new case, I understand that you're appealing the decision, which any loving parent would do. You've had court-appointed attorneys. Now, I know you can't predict the future. I know that you can't, you know, say what's going to happen in the future, but how do you feel now about the way your attorney is representing your children's best interest?
I do feel like she's doing a great job. I can't trust anyone. I've learned that, but I have no other feelings towards it. I feel like I have to be optimistic because she's my only voice, and that's why I just want to keep fighting with other people. I want to get a group of people together. Like, I know that you guys, this is what your goal is, to change the system.
Yeah.
And because I feel like even if I hired a very expensive lawyer, it's not going to change anything. I just feel like whatever they want to do is what they want to do because of their funding.
Yeah. As you know, and as you've been finding out through your ordeal, the system is very broken.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
this is why we're doing the shows, is so hopefully the general public can become aware of what's taking place in the court systems with CPS and with the family courts. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience on talking to other families that have been through this and other people that you're aware of? Yeah, I understand you've done some research on that.
Oh, yes. I have come across many trends. I just feel like every case should be different, and it just seems that CPS has a way of doing things just to have their income. The way that they're funded, I feel like all of that needs to be redone and looked at differently from a perspective of they're dealing with children and mothers and fathers, grandparents, everything. It needs to all be more considerate, I feel, because the things I've read, the things I've heard people say, and it's just, it hurts. I hurt for them. I hurt for myself, my babies, for families all across America going through the same pain as we've been going through.
Yeah.
So.
And I understand you have a wonderful mother who's
yes.
been a great support system.
Oh yes, she's
for
the
you.
best. Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me how you feel about CPS denying her and your father the right to raise your children while you were unable to?
It was just a complete shock. I've had I've had our pastor write letters on telling how great of a family we've been, you know, that they've known us for about 10 years. And I've had family members, friends, just multiple letters, and I just don't feel that they gave my boys a chance to be part of our family. They were so quick to just take them away. And it's not right at all.
Unfortunately, a lot of parents are going through what you're going through.
Yeah.
I know that this is hard for you to talk about, and I appreciate you, taking us through that. Can you tell me in general how you think the system could benefit, or you as a parent in completing, their safety plan that they set up the first time successfully, having the children removed, and then successfully completing it again with virtually, it seems like nothing that you did to have the children pulled again that was criminal or neglectful or abusive. What do you think could be done differently in that aspect?
Well, I have to say that I did benefit from the services that they provided for me. I feel like I did gain a lot of knowledge about parenting and whatnot, but nothing is perfect, and definitely it's not CPS. And so there's just a lot to work on, and I think the people should be trained differently in the system. There's just so much to talk about that type of those situations.
So what has your attorney told you to expect at this point? It was it January of this year that they were permanently removed?
Yes, January 23rd of this year, yes.
And can you tell us what your attorney is feeling about that?
She just said she's not gonna give me any false hope. We're just gonna try. She said most likely, cases like this don't really get reversed. A lot of termination appeals, they stay terminated unless you keep fighting and fighting and fighting.
Well, and I think that's, really what we need to focus on is that, we may not make immediate changes, but, we will make changes. The courts and the CPS need to implement changes.
Oh yeah, definitely.
In how they do things. We appreciate you coming to talk to us.
Oh, thank you.
And grateful to have, you stand up and speak for so many mothers and parents who go through this, who are afraid of retaliation.
Oh yeah, I was until they took my rights away.
Yeah.
And I feel like I should have done this a long time ago.
Okay.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
I will be praying for you, and take care.
Thank you so much.